Prince Harry reportedly told his father, King Charles III, a man currently managing a cancer diagnosis that is not in remission, that without taxpayer-funded armed security, he would not bring Archie and Lilibet to the United Kingdom to see him. And the king's response was nothing. Not an argument, not a counteroffer, not a briefing to a sympathetic journalist.
Prince Harry reportedly told his father, a man currently managing a cancer diagnosis that is not in remission, that without taxpayer-funded security, he would not bring Archie and Lilibet to the United Kingdom to see him. King Charles said nothing, not a counteroffer, not a public statement, not a signal through an intermediary, not a single word from Buckingham Palace. Complete, sustained, deliberate silence. And if you understand one thing about how the British monarchy communicates, understand this: silence is never an accident. In an institution where every word is measured, every gesture is calibrated, and a facial expression at a state funeral gets decoded by 50 journalists within the hour, silence is always a choice. It is always a strategy. Tonight, we are going to examine exactly what that silence means, why Charles made it, and why the most important fact in this entire story has nothing to do with security arrangements or legal precedents or institutional policy. It has to do with the ages of 2 children in California and a clock that nobody in this family gets to control. The architecture of the demand. First, let's be precise about what was reportedly communicated, because how it was framed is exactly what caused the reaction it caused. Harry's position, as reported across multiple outlets, was straightforward on its surface. Without confirmed security arrangements, he would not bring Archie and Lilibet on the journey. A parent making safety-based decisions about where his children travel. Taken in complete isolation, that is an ordinary and defensible position. No reasonable person faults a father for drawing a line around his children's safety. But this did not land as a routine logistics update. It detonated inside the palace. And to understand why, you have to understand the context wrapped around it. Harry's dispute with the royal household. Aid over security is not a new disagreement that emerged from one planned trip. It is a multi-year legal and political battle fought through court filings, public statements, and sustained media campaigns on both sides. The palace's institutional position, held consistently since Harry stepped back from royal duties, is that his level of protection changed when his status changed, that this is governed by an established governmental process, and that it is not subject to family negotiation or personal preference. That position has not moved, not once, under any pressure applied to it. So when Harry's statement places the children's presence in the king's life alongside the resolution of that security dispute, when it says, in effect, the children come when the security issue is resolved, it does something very specific. It links 2 categories the palace has spent years insisting must remain separate: family relationships on one side, institutional security policy on the other. And by linking them, it creates a form of pressure the institution cannot respond to without either capitulating to a demand it has consistently refused, or being publicly seen as choosing policy over a grandfather's relationship with his grandchildren. That is the architecture of what happened, and once you see it, you understand why silence was the only move Charles had left. 3 options, all of them bad. Put yourself in Charles's position for a moment. You are 76 years old. You received a cancer diagnosis in the first year of your reign. You are managing treatment while performing the duties of head of state for a country and a commonwealth of nations. You buried your mother after her 70-year reign. You absorbed the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary series, a memoir titled Spare, and you did not respond publicly to any of it. You absorbed all of it. Now your son has reportedly communicated that access to your grandchildren is conditional on a security concession that your institutional advisors, your heir, and the established governmental process all tell you must not be granted under pressure. You have 3 options. Option 1, capitulate. Grant the security arrangement. Get the grandchildren to Balmoral. Hold them in a garden. Have the afternoon that grandparents live for. Create the memories that remain after everything else is gone. The emotional reward is real and immediate. The institutional cost is catastrophic. You have established on the record that security decisions can be overridden by family pressure applied through the press. Every future negotiation proceeds from that precedent. And Prince William, your heir, the future of the institution, inherits a situation where a binding arrangement was granted not through process, but through leverage. William's position, by every credible piece of reporting, is that Harry chose to leave royal life and that the consequences of that choice include changes to his security status. If Charles reverses that under these circumstances, William inherits a structural problem he fundamentally opposes. Option 2, Publicly refuse. Issue a statement making clear that security is an institutional matter and family access will not be used to influence it. The institution's integrity is preserved. William is satisfied. And for the rest of his life, however much of it remains, Charles is the grandfather who chose rules over his grandchildren. Every headline writes itself. That framing, once it enters public consciousness, does not leave. Option 3. Silence. Say nothing. Authorize nothing. Let the story exist in the public space without engaging its framing. Accept that others will fill the vacuum with their own interpretations. Accept the cost of being seen as passive, but avoid the two options that both close doors permanently. Charles chose the third option, and when you see his constraints clearly, it is the only option that does not make something irreversible worse. Silence keeps the situation unresolved. Unresolved is painful, but unresolved is not permanent. The other two options are the Balmoral question. Here is where the security argument starts to look considerably different. Balmoral Estate in the Scottish Highlands, 50,000 acres of royal property, one of the most extensively secured private residences in the world. The security infrastructure there is permanent, professional, and staffed year-round. It exists regardless of which guests are present or what any individual visitor's protection status might be. Travel to the estate from a private airfield involves primarily controlled, royal land rather than public commercial environments. The grounds are vast enough that a family visit could take place entirely within its boundaries, with no movement into the kinds of public spaces Harry's legal team has described in court filings. Think about what that means practically. A private flight from California, landing at a prearranged airfield, transfer by secure vehicle on controlled roads, days spent entirely within the estate grounds, children on the same lawns where their father spent summers as a boy, where Princess Diana brought Harry and William each August, where Queen Elizabeth spent her final days, a grandfather and two small children, and the kind of unscripted, unfilmed time that actually builds the relationships children carry through their lives. No public walkabouts, no press conferences, no uncontrolled crowds, just Balmoral. The Queen received prime ministers and foreign heads of state at Balmoral, individuals with genuine, documented security threats against them, without incident, under that same security umbrella. The notion that two children aged 7 and 5 cannot safely visit that estate because their father's individual protection status is being contested in a separate legal proceeding is an argument that, once you examine Balmoral's actual operational reality, begins to look less like a safety concern and more like a negotiating position dressed in safety language. Every royal commentator who has raised this scenario makes the same point. This visit is logistically achievable right now without resolving the formal security dispute. The infrastructure exists, the property exists, the security exists, the invitation, by all available reporting, exists. Charles has never closed the door. So, if the Balmoral scenario is achievable, and the people who understand the operational realities of royal security argue specifically that it is, then the question is no longer whether the children can safely visit the United Kingdom. The question is why they haven't. What is actually being negotiated? Several close observers of this situation have put forward a reading that, once you hear it, reframes the entire dispute. What is being negotiated on this reading is not the logistics of a summer trip. It is a durable, permanent, taxpayer-funded security arrangement that would follow Harry wherever he travels, for as long as he and his family need it, and crucially, one that would remain in place regardless of which monarch sits on the throne when the arrangement exists. An arrangement of that kind would not expire with Charles's reign. It would become embedded in the institutional security apparatus that William inherits when he eventually becomes king, and once established, it would be significantly harder to revoke than it would be to decline before it was ever granted. From William's perspective, a man who, by every credible account, draws clear institutional lines and does nay, ought redraw them. This matters enormously. William is thinking in decades. He is thinking about what the monarchy looks like when his own children are preparing for the responsibilities he currently carries. A precedent set now, under emotional pressure, becomes part of the institutional foundation that future arrangements are built on. William is not being cold when he holds this line. He is being institutional in the purest sense, protecting the structure, not punishing his brother. But the effect for Charles is that one son's institutional judgment constrains his ability to reach the other son's children. And Charles has accepted that constraint repeatedly by choosing silence over capitulation, the dimension that cuts through everything. Now let's talk about the thing that makes every institutional argument feel insufficient. King Charles's cancer is not in remission. He is 76 years old. He is responding to treatment, continuing to perform the duties of head of state, showing up at engagements when many people in his position would have withdrawn entirely from public life. The palace language is careful and precise. He is in a precautionary phase. He is being managed. Managed is not the same as cured. Archie is 7, Lilibet is 5. Sit with those numbers because they are the most important facts in this story. 7 and 5 are the specific ages where a grandparent's consistent physical presence shapes memory, not video calls, not care packages, not scheduled appearances that never materialize. The ordinary, unremarkable accumulation of being in the same room, playing on a lawn, hearing a voice in a particular room, sitting at a table together, creates the foundation of how a child understands their place in a family. That foundation is not built remotely. It is built through presence, through repetition, through the unscripted moments that a SEV, N-year-old and a 5-year-old carry for the rest of their lives. If it is not built during these specific years, its absence leaves something different behind. Not nothing. Something with its own weight. The quiet awareness, grown from childhood, that a grandfather existed somewhere far away but was never really part of the texture of daily life. That kind of absence does not get undone by a reconciliation at 15. The window is specific, and it closes at a pace nobody in this family controls. Think about your own grandparents, if you were lucky enough to have them present. You probably don't remember specific conversations with precision. What you remember is presence, the smell of their house, the sound of their voice, the knowledge, absorbed rather than taught, that you belonged to something larger than your immediate family, that there were people whose love for you had a different texture than your parents' love. That is what is at stake for Archie and Lilibet right now, and it is being built or not built in real time. While adults on both sides of the Atlantic argue about security protocols and legal precedents and institutional processes, the children simply know whether their grandfather is there or not there. Right now, he is not there, and the summers keep passing. The parallel nobody wants to name. There is a comparison that keeps surfacing in serious analysis of this situation, and it is uncomfortable enough that most observers approach it carefully. Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, is completely estranged from his daughter. He has no relationship with Archie and Lilibet, no visits, no confirmed contact. The circumstances of that estrangement are different from the Harry-Charles situation. Thomas Markle's conduct before and after the wedding provides a distinct set of reasons for the breakdown, and the argument for treating these as entirely separate cases is reasonable. But here is the simpler argument for seeing them together. Two grandfathers on opposite sides of the world with identical outcomes. N. Either has a meaningful relationship with the same two children. Both situations are the product of choices made entirely by adults. Both persist year after year, and the children who had no voice in any of these decisions are the ones bearing the lived daily consequence. When every grandparental relationship in a family has been severed simultaneously, at some point the question shifts. It moves from why each individual relationship failed to what the common variable is across all of them. That question has not been publicly asked by anyone with the standing to demand an answer, but it sits in the background of every serious piece of reporting on this subject, and every informed observer can feel its weight even when they choose not to name it directly. The hardest parallel of all. And then there is the dimension of this story that I find impossible to sit with comfortably. Harry has spoken at length and with evident emotional depth about losing his mother at 12 years old. Princess Diana's death shaped everything that followed. He has described, more publicly than any member of his family in living memory, the specific, permanent wound of a parent being gone before a child is ready, the conversations that can never happen, the questions that can no longer be asked. He made that understanding central to his memoir, central to his public identity, central to Sentebale, his charity named after the Sesotho word meaning forget-me-not, a direct tribute to Diana. He has articulated what parental absence does to a child with more emotional force than almost any public figure of his generation. His father is alive, his father is present, his father is, by every available report, extending grace repeatedly and without public complaint. The door to Balmoral stands open. The invitation has reportedly been renewed through intermediaries multiple times. The security infar, a structure that makes a private visit logistically straightforward, has existed for decades. Harry lost his mother at 12. He has told us what that did to him. He understands, at a depth few people can claim, what it means for a child to grow up with a grandparent who existed somewhere far away but never became part of the texture of childhood. His children's grandfather has cancer that is not in remission. He is 76. And the stated obstacle to those children spending time on the estate where their father formed his happiest childhood memories is a security arrangement that Balmoral's own permanent infrastructure makes practically unnecessary for a private family visit. The distance between the Harry who understood his father's loneliness so clearly and described it so movingly, and the Harry who is maintaining conditions that deepen that loneliness while time runs out, is the distance that makes this story impossible to resolve with any clean narrative. Because both versions of Harry appear to be genuine. The grief is genuine. The love for his mother is genuine. The understanding of what absence does to a child is genuine. And the conditions are also genuine. Those things existing simultaneously in the same person is the part of this story that no institutional analysis can settle. Where this leaves us. Charles chose silence because it was the only option that did not close a door permanently. Capitulation sets a precedent that damages the institution William inherits. Public refusal turns him into the grandfather who chose rules over grandchildren in every headline for the remainder of his life. Silence preserves possibility without making resolution harder. The Balmoral question remains unanswered. The estate is secure. The infrastructure is permanent. The invitation has not been withdrawn. The fact that summers have passed without Archie and Lilibet on those grounds tells you the obstacle is not security. It is whatever the security dispute has become a proxy for. The children are in California. Their grandfetti, Arthur, is in treatment. Their other grandfather is completely estranged. Two sets of adult decisions. One set of children carrying all of it without having been consulted about any of it. And the clock runs. Charles's cancer is not in remission. He is 76. The window for building the kind of relationship that shapes how a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old understand their grandfather is not indefinite. It closes at a rate that no legal filing, no security arrangement, and no palace communication strategy can slow. Every summer that passes without those children on the lawns of Balmoral is a summer that does not come back. Charles chose silence, and I think that silence is the sound of a man who has concluded that engaging with this framing would cost more than it could repair. A man absorbing what he is absorbing, keeping the door open, and waiting. The question underneath all of it is the simplest one and the hardest one. How many more summers? That is not rhetorical, it is mathematical, and nobody in this story, not Harry, not Charles, not William, not Meghan, gets to determine the answer. Biology determines it. Medicine determines it. The kind of uncertainty that does not negotiate. Against that uncertainty, every legal position and institutional precedent shrinks. Because time does not wait for negotiations to conclude. Time does not file extensions. Time runs, and every summer it runs is a summer that does not come back. If this video gave you something to think about, I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think Charles's silence really communicates? Do you think the Balmoral visit is genuinely achievable? Where do you place responsibility in this situation? Subscribe and hit the bell for weekly deep dives into the dynamics shaping the future of the British monarchy. The story is still unfolding, and so is the analysis. Thank you for watching.